If you're with us, thanks. And last but not least, and we will start with them, are the guests from the States, Houston, an entrepreneurial family, father and son, Art and Cody Nicholson.
Yay! Welcome on stage. Art and Cody Nicholson, I will just introduce you in German real quick, sind beide Immobilienmakler, Investoren, vor allen Dingen Art hat da lange Jahre das gemacht. Seit 83 ist er schon im gewerblichen Immobilienmarkt tätig, also lange Erfahrung schon da, gibt das weiter an seinen Sohn und zusammen haben sie ein mega geniales Projekt auf die Beine gestellt, von dem wir nachher hören. Ich glaube, ich erzähle gar nicht mehr, weil das ist so spannend, darüber auch nachher zu hören. Und Sie werden es nachher vorstellen, wenn wir miteinander reden.
So, thanks for being with us. It's a great privilege to have you here. And you have a great hospitality. I was in Houston in November. We had a great time together, and you have an exciting project. So it's your time. You have some slides with you. Yes. So Cody, please start.
It's your stage.
Thank you so much, Timo. I have my slides here. Perfect. Hello. Thank you for having me here at the WA Business Coalition. My name is Cody Nicholson, and this Business for Transformation is the non-profit side of our for-profit business. Back in the States, we manage a fund of real estate just under about 200 million in operational assets. And so we take private equity and we use the private equity to produce income-producing real estate cash flows for our investors. So Business for Transformation was birthed from this idea. And so this capital group now takes investor dollars, invests it in income-producing real estate, and then takes around and uses those profits to support ministry for long-term investing. So, short-term giving versus long-term investing. Real quick, whenever we give dollars to a ministry or a Christ-centered nonprofit organization, that nonprofit organization will use those dollars for the fiscal year. But then, the following year, those dollars need to be raised again to support that group. Our model changes the way people do the giving, and it's a long-term investing. And so the way that we change that is we ask those givers to make donations to a capital group that invests those same dollars into a machine. And that machine is real estate, and that real estate produces long-term cash flows, which then support ministry long-term. So as opposed to giving your dollars to a nonprofit one time, we ask that you give those dollars to the capital group to produce a long-term giving investment. This is our transformation model. Essentially, B4T, or Business for Transformation Capital, invest in multifamily communities. This can be anything from apartments to manufactured housing to any other real estate machine that produces a cash flow long-term. We then use the profits from these investments to sustain nonprofits long-term. What that means is that B4T Capital will buy a project, an apartment complex, or any income-producing real estate and use those cash flows to sustain any nonprofit organization for years and years to come, as opposed to a one-time gift. Then B4T partners with local Christ-centered churches in the area where that community, that apartment complex, that manufactured community was purchased, and it partners long-term with a church. For instance, we could partner with a group or a church that matches the local community. So if it's a Spanish community, we will partner with a Spanish church. B4T offers 3 different types of investing. The first is one-time donation, or a designated gift, where the B4T transformation model goes straight through. Invest in a capital fund. We then designate the cash flow from that property that you invest in through our group to sustain the nonprofit that you choose for long-term sustainability. The second option that we offer is called donor lending. And donor lending is when someone invests in B4T Capital Fund. We then use those dollars to sustain a nonprofit, but then after a 5 to 10 year period, we're able to give those dollars back as a loan. And the third option is partnered with Trinity Communities Group, where we produce a mixed return. And a mixed return is where we offer an investor the option to invest in the fund. A portion of the fund produces a return of capital back to the investor, and another percentage of the fund goes back to the nonprofit of their choosing. Business for Transformation works. What we're doing is we're asking people to think a little bit differently about the way they give. If you have a nonprofit that you're looking to raise funds for, we ask that instead of taking the funds, a one-time gift, that you allow those funds to be invested. And by investing in those into real estate, we're allowing people to create long-term sustainability for their organization. And we believe that this long-term sustainability through this annuity leaves a legacy long to come. So instead of giving your dollars one time to a nonprofit that you really support, we ask that you invest those dollars first. And then after they're invested, allow us to produce a long-term legacy in your name for that organization that you choose. So, that being said, we ask that people give, and that giving be invested, and that those investments produce a yield, and then allow that yield to transform the communities that we purchase and invest in, but also we use that investment to put off cash flow for long years to come that'll support ministry and Christ-centered nonprofits for times to come. Thank you, Timo.
Thanks a lot, Cody, for that
Yes.
introduction and
Yes.
insights. And it's a really interesting model to support Christian ministries by business. So mobile home parks, which I visited last year in the Houston area, is not that much known in the German and European environment. It's much more used in the States. So tell us a little bit about this business model of a mobile home park and the social impact and also spiritual impact you
Yes.
have with that parks.
Yes, so manufactured housing is something I think very unique to the United States. It basically, imagine in your mind that they're building a home in a factory, and that home is then transported on a truck to a predetermined location where we'll put 400 houses on one piece of land, and we'll put streets, and it'll become a neighborhood. Except instead of building the home on location, it's produced in a factory and shipped in a truck. And we call that manufactured housing. And so we then use these communities to produce rental income, which then cash flow to give nonprofits their basis for operation. The beauty of this is that since we own the communities in which we invest into, we're then able to allow nonprofits like churches and Christ-centered organizations like prison ministries and other ministries that then work in cooperation with our group to step in and reach out to that community. So we then can offer teaching courses for people who may need English as a second language, or we may allow them to partner with a church that they would not necessarily have the connection with. A lot of the people that move into our communities travel around the country. Maybe they're plumbers or electricians, and we are able to offer them a family connection in a church that's local through this model.
Wow, great. So you can improve the life quality of people in that parks
Yes.
and use the earnings to support ministry and
Yes.
Christian organizations.
Yes.
So Art, you have founded that organization or company more than 20 years ago. How's the development of this business of mobile home parks, and what could you assume for Germany, for Europe?
How would we use it for Germany and Europe? The idea, the vision is if someone wanted to invest money in a ministry, for example, in Germany, and they wanted that money to create cash flow, if they wanted to, they could invest the money, as Cody mentioned, in one of our investment opportunities, and then we would send the money to the ministry in Germany that is notated by the investor. That's the way we see it could make a difference. We're trying to do this in Romania, Germany, and in France as we speak.
I have heard a quote which says, a donation dollar has just one life, but a business dollar has multiple lives. So is that the core of that concept, to say we not just donate it for one time, but invest it, which creates some kind of more capital at the end?
Yes. One of the, if you call it the important motivation, was so many ministry in the States, you give them $1 today, and in 3 months, 6 months, they need another $1. And so it seems like they're constantly fundraising. If you can create an income stream by taking the money that people normally give that ministry and invest it, you're able to support that ministry with sustainable income. And here's what's important. You take away all the multiple time that must be used to raise money. You now give them back time to really do something for the gospel.
Cody, whenever I'm in Houston, you have a board, or you are just building a new park, new houses, so it's a fast development. How's the market for this kind of mobile home parks?
That's a great question, Timo. So in the United States, at the moment, because of the large influx of immigrants, mainly from Mexico and Central America, and also the expansion in the southern United States of oil and gas refining, we find that there is a large influx of blue-collar and localized workers that are in the blue-collar force. And so we, at the moment, are building these manufactured communities across the state, and they are filling up with renters faster than we can physically build them. It is a great time in Texas right now.
Wow, great.
Yes.
And how can we participate in that organization, that movement, B4T?
Great.
What can we do?
So there are a few options if you'd like to participate in Business for Transformation. One would be is if you are a contributor to a nonprofit or a church or a localized Christ-centered ministry. You can then invest into a piece of real estate through Business for Transformation, and then we'll designate the profits from that investment to the charity or nonprofit that you designate. The second option is if you are a nonprofit or a Christ-centered organization and you'd like to redirect some of the funds coming to your group into income-producing real estate, we can help build long-term sustainability for your organization. And we have all the financial management tools, accounting, and legal to help someone successfully get onto the road of long-term financial independence.
Thanks, Cody.
Yes.
What are your questions about this model? Please.
Does the people who live in this community have a stigma? Kind of like, do they get stigmatized by other people around? For example, you say, yeah, I grew up in this area, and then maybe later on a person who wants to give you a job says, oh, you come from this area, this is suspicious, because these are maybe cheap rentals, kind of.
Cheap rentals as in like low-income housing?
Yes.
So a lot of the new manufactured housing that we build is what we call AAA, which means that they are gated communities with paved roads and new units. So I think I'm answering your question, maybe I'm not, but what we do is there's a very stringent application process where we look at every person that moves into that property and we make sure that there's no criminal background history and that community is safe. Did I answer your question? What was your question?
I mean, you want to support ministry through your project. Where's the social aspect? I mean, ministry is important, but
Yes.
the social aspect is kind of missing for me.
Okay, so when you say social aspect, are you asking what does B4T do for the community? Okay, that's a great question. So, for instance, we have a property in Houston that we just completed about a year ago, and we give one of the units in that property for free to one of the churches, the pastors. He lives in that unit with his family and children for free. And what we ask of that pastor is that with his free time, that they go out and minister to the community. And I don't mean knocking on doors and causing problems. What I mean is that we have a fund that he's supported by, that he's able to go out and rent bouncy castles for the children, During Thanksgiving, which is a U.S. holiday where we eat turkey, we give away free turkeys, and we invite the community to come out. And then we have a worship service with the church where we have a band and a stage built at the community, and we invite people to come out and experience each other and get to know their fellow people that live in the community. But we also offer them classes and the ability to get involved. And I think that that's really important and allows people who normally wouldn't know their neighbors the ability to go out and get involved with their local community. And I think that's the social aspect that it offers.
Thank you, Cody.
Yep.
Do we have further questions? Other aspects, comments, anything else? Oh, again.
Sorry. So if you say if this is AAA, how can people from countries like you said, like the immigrants from South America, afford to live in your houses?
That's a good question. So these AAA properties are gated, they have cameras for security, and they have new units. But that doesn't mean that the rents are so high that people can't afford to live in them. It's called affordable housing for a reason. And so the rents in the United States are usually between $300 US dollars to rent the land, and then maybe $1,000 to rent a house. And so that's about the middle of the market for Houston, but in other areas of the country, it differs greatly depending on the marketplace. But we aim to hit a very special, select group of people that meet that blue-collar need. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
The immigrant that we're used to that comes from Mexico and South America is much different than the immigrant I think that you've experienced here. The typical family that comes from south of the United States is hungry to work and build a better life. And they come and they work extremely hard. The typical family is religious, hardworking, and they stay together. It's a very good combination. So you'd be very surprised how profitable they are when they come. So they're a big benefit to our society.
Many thanks, Art. Yeah. Oh, here's the question. Yeah.
In the basic financial model, there is a difference to the classic way of giving. For example, if I give to an NGO $100, they could immediately lose the $100 in the following year. If I give to your group $100, they will only get the interest rate in the following year. That means 4 or 5%. That means $4 or $5. So there is a difference of $95 in the first year. The continuous is quite long, but the difference is quite high. So that means it's like investing in a fund or something that could be also another one or a foundation. So that's the point, how you're going to solve that. Because there will be if people give more to your organization, they will have a need in the first years.
Yes, that's an interesting point. Number one, the fund does not produce 4 or 5%. It's actually much greater than that, but it's not 100% at all or close to it. So how do we create 100%? The answer is we don't. We don't expect an NGO or a nonprofit to give 100% of their funds to Business for Transformation. What we ask, though, is like the average household that saves money each year into an account, that they start to invest so that maybe in 10 years they've put enough money aside into investments where Business for Transformation doesn't make a profit on any of the investments. What it does is it rolls 100% of the profits back into that NGO. So think of this more as, when you are working at your own job, but you put a little money aside every year and you save it and invest it so that when you're older, you have a retirement fund. This is kind of the same ideology where we're asking NGOs and nonprofits, hey, don't eat everything that you take. Maybe set aside a certain percentage of your income so that we can invest it so that maybe in 10 or 15 years, your long-term strategy will become financially secure.
Many thanks, Cody and Art Nicholson.
Thank you for having us.
Further questions? Yeah.
This is something that the missionary community is dealing with. You may already know about, but I'd just like to hear, how is the response for missionaries when they go to retirement, which is a problem for some churches because they don't have a plan how to deal with a retired missionary. Is this a solution to that?
Thank you.
To give you an example, in the United States, many people who are missionaries opt out of our Social Security program for their pension. And the idea is that they're going to save that money on the side and build their own fund, because Social Security is notorious low returns. But the reality is they never save the money. So to answer one of the questions, we have a very good friend who is in the ministry in south of France. And he has saved a little money, but it's not enough for retirement for him to live on. And so he has invested his money in one of our properties, and we've been able to give him a return that is enough to sustain him when he comes back to the United States and begins to retire. Now, it's different for every people. He did save some money. That's something that's I worry about with a lot of my friends who are missionaries. And in this gentleman's case, he's 70 years old. So he's close to my age. So I worry about that sort of thing. The whole idea behind this idea is to take money that people would normally give and produce income so you can bless the kingdom of Christ, whether it would be retirement, whether it would go to a children's fund in Germany, wherever it would go, the money would be produced and it would be coming consistently, sustainably for a long time.
Thanks, Art. Cody and Art will be with us over the next 3 days, so whenever you have questions, they are available here in the International Lounge, so don't hesitate to speak to them. We will follow up with entrepreneurs now from Norway, and I will give the microphone to Anja Di Marco, who will moderate the next part.
Thank you so much, Timo.
Yeah, you guys can